Foundation. Good to have you. Welcome, John. Thank you for being our guest here on Morning Live and on our special broadcast on SABC channels. John, how did you react to the news of the passing of Mandela?
Well, despite the fact that, you know, we were anticipating it, I think it came at a personal level at a tremendous shock. I had a deep feeling of sadness, but also a feeling of joy in the sense that at last Madiba is at rest.
So that was, for you, you felt that almost a sense of he must now go in peace and rest.
Yes.
Yeah. When was the last time you actually got to see him?
It was quite a while ago, in fact, and you know, once I left the foundation, one of the things one had to learn was to respect Madiba's request, in fact, that when he went into retirement, don't call me, I'll call you. So one respected that, in fact.
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. I would imagine, and but I'm sure the phone calls didn't stop. I'm sure he called you quite often.
Yes. Yeah.
Take us back to the beginning of your friendship with Mandela. When did you actually meet him?
I first met him, in fact, in early 1990, when I was head of the ANC's education department, and Madiba had arranged for a meeting with President de Klerk to talk about education. And so that was the first meeting. And, you know, it didn't take me too long to form some initial impressions. And one of the most amazing things was that when we got off the plane, he asked for the crew to line up and thanked every single member of the crew.
Wow.
You know, and I'd seen him do that time and time again.
Yeah.
In many different places and in many different contexts, in fact.
It's quite incredible to hear the stories of and it doesn't matter who you speak to. He just was that type of individual that he didn't want to be isolated and sort of kept away from everybody. He wanted to be part of the crowd. He wanted to be with the people.
Yes, very much so, in fact. He had this amazing understanding, in fact, and it just wasn't, you know, it just wasn't general, in fact. He had this amazing ability to spot children in a crowd. I never forget, in fact, we were in London, and to this day I don't know how Madiba spotted this little boy in the crowd and asked his security people to bring the little boy across to him so he could speak with him.
Yeah.
And he did so, in fact. And you know, none of us saw the little boy.
But he spotted him.
This was amazing.
And I think his love for children obviously emulated in his passion for education. And obviously, you know, that's your background. That was where you come from. What was the passion that Madiba had with education?
Well, I think, you know, it was something that he firmly believed in the sense that it could bring you a personal freedom. Education had the power to bring that to the individual. But also, I think, he knew that education had the capacity to break the cycle of poverty. And I think this was the power. And, you know, his relentless requests to CEOs to help him build schools. It's not really known, but over the period that Madiba began this project, he built over 120 schools across the country.
Wow, that's incredible. And during his time, was this during the presidency or after the presidency?
No, after the presidency.
After the presidency,
yes,
he built 120 schools around the country. And this was from just getting corporates involved, from funding, from getting that phone call that all the CEOs knew that if they got that phone call, oh, they couldn't say no.
No. And what Madiba would do was he'd study the newspaper reports on companies to see which companies were doing well. And then he would say, well, I think I'll invite this one to lunch. And that was the beginning, in fact.
That's incredible. I mean, I wonder if South Africans actually know that. That's amazing. And these schools all over the country.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when we look at Oprah Winfrey School as well, did he play a key role in creating or asking her to open that school as well?
Yes, in fact, you know, she tells the story about how she knew of his reputation of asking people for money to build schools.
Yeah.
And so before he actually asked her, she said, "Look, Madiba, I'm going to give you some money to build a school."
Yeah.
So that's how that started, in fact.
That's amazing.
And what started off as an initial $10 million grant ended up to be a $50 million school.
Sure. Look at that. Well, that's the power of Madiba and just that phone call, that infamous phone call, that if your phone rang and Madiba was on the other side, A, you couldn't say no, and B, he was phoning for money.
Yes.
But for a good cause,
Right.
and mostly for the children.
Yeah.
Now, you were the very, very first CEO of the Nelson Mandela Foundation. Just talk to us about the decision to form this foundation and what you were hoping to achieve with it.
Interestingly, in fact, after Madiba stepped down as president, he continued to be very active and very busy. He was working on the Burundi peace talks. He was very involved in education. And of course, he'd taken on the HIV/AIDS issue. And so there was need for administrative infrastructure to support him in this. And that's how the foundation started. But it evolved, in fact, when we began to realize that keeping his legacy alive was an important part of the work of the foundation.
Yeah.
And so today, the foundation has a Center for Memory, which has as its main objective keeping the legacy alive.
So if you can explain the workings of it, I mean, the foundation is still there, the Nelson Mandela Foundation, but has it been divided, or is that the main umbrella, and from it we get the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund, the Nelson Mandela Center for Memory, or are they all separate entities?
No, they're separate entities. In
Okay.
fact, the Madiba set up the Children's Fund when he was president.
Yeah.
And so that was the first of his organizations. And the foundation was set up when he'd stepped down as president.
Yeah. And then the Center for Memory is something that developed after.
Yes, the Center for Memory, in fact, is part of the foundation, but it's become the key function of the foundation.
Okay. Which right now at this point, just coincidentally, just to tell viewers out there, this centre has now been opened to the public for people to go there if you would like to. It is in Houghton as well. I'll find that exact address for you. I don't want to give out the wrong address, but it's in Houghton, and you are welcome to go there and visit it. It's open to the public until the 20th of December. And if I'm not mistaken, today I also know that there's a memorial service that's going to be taking place there. Well, a memorial and a remembrance service that'll be happening at the Center for Memory. John, just in terms of your work at the Nelson Mandela Foundation, what stands out for you as one of the key things that was actually accomplished there?
I think the manner in which Madiba took on the HIV and AIDS issue. This became, in fact, his major concern during the period that I was at the foundation. And he did a number of different things, and probably the most important thing was profiling the issue in the way that made people, first of all, pay attention to it,
Yeah.
because I think that was one of the challenges we had in the country. And secondly, removing the stigma. He told a story time and time again about how important this was.
Yeah.
And then I think the other major achievement was lending his prison number to the global concerts. And this had a major impact, in fact, in terms of profiling the HIV and AIDS issue.
Yeah, and we're talking about 46664, a number that, obviously his prison number, as you say, but a number that I think something that the whole world knows about. And of course, creating ambassadors from all walks of life and the biggest names in the industries. You know, again, this idea of getting these ambassadors to represent the campaign?
Well, I think it was, again, part of getting the message through. And many of the ambassadors were top-line artists,
Yeah.
entertainers, and so on. And initially, in fact, they all committed to taking 5 minutes wherever they appeared to talk about HIV and AIDS. So can you imagine the power of that message?
Yeah, yeah. That's fantastic. And those concerts were a great success that were held all over the world.
Yes, yes. In fact, I mean, of course, my memories of the first concert always stand out because we eventually ended up with a lineup of about 42 international artists.
Sure.
And in the end, in fact, we were turning top-line artists away.
In your mind, which is possibly the biggest artist that you had to turn away?
Well, I'm not going to mention names, in fact, because it might be an embarrassment.
It might be,
yes,
hey?
Yeah,
so you were actually turning some top-line artists away.
Yes. Yeah.
Take us back to that first concert. Where was it held and what was it like?
It was held in Cape Town.
Yeah.
And it was one of those true South African moments, in fact, in the sense that you felt a moment when the country was coming together.
Yeah.
People enjoyed it. There wasn't a single incident. And as I walked through the crowd during the performance, in fact, when Madiba appeared on the stage, I can guarantee you there wasn't a single dry eye in the audience.
My goodness. A dry eye in the audience and a dry eye at home, because I was not in that audience, but I was at home watching that concert.
Yes,
It was amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that was amazing. And just, it's something that'll live on. I mean, if we have to show that concert today, I think people would still feel that same emotion.
Yes, yeah. No, his presence, in fact, is what is so amazing. And I've seen it, even though I saw it so many times, it still continued to amaze me.
Did you ever sit back sometimes and sometimes I do that when I'm surrounded by greatness and people are around me and they're so amazing. And sometimes you watch them from afar and you watch them walking and you watch their presence and you watch their impact on others around them. Did you do that? Did you sort of understand what greatness you were around all the time?
Yes, I think, and it wasn't Madiba who reminded you of this. It was the audience.
Yeah.
So I, for example, witnessed the finance ministers of the G8 behaving like little schoolboys, lining up to say hello to him and wanting to impress him with their knowledge of his work. And so very often I would be in the background watching this, in fact, watching heads of state just simply want to have their photograph taken with him. And so this sense of greatness was something that you witnessed over and over again in his presence.
Yeah, that's the truth, and you felt it, that towering presence, that feeling that was just overwhelming when you met this man. I mean, when I remember meeting him for the first time, I was dumbfounded. I didn't know what to do. I felt this small in the presence of greatness, but it was just one of the most incredible moments. John, I'm going to ask you to stay on, because there's so many more memories I want to talk to you, and something that I was reminded by Peter, which I'm going to talk to you about, was Madiba's integral role in South Africa getting the World Cup back in 2010. Peter, that was a big moment. I mean, I suppose the workings behind the scene, we need to let the nation know how much Madiba actually did.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'd love to get John's take on that. But you remember the time when the envelope was opened and South Africa's name came through. It was like we'd won the World Cup already. It was a very, very special time. And Madiba really, I think, was probably our greatest asset in getting that bid. But you'll hear more about that from John a little bit later on Well, there you go. Special moments in time, World Cup finals 2010, and also right at the beginning, Francois Pienaar in 1995. And Madiba, of course, wore that special number 6 jersey on that day. And it was one moment I remember, certainly. I mean, this first time I saw cars hooting everywhere that you were in South Africa, all united behind the Springboks. They weren't given a chance, to be honest. And when you talk to and hear the interviews with the Springbok players, they all talk about the way Madiba inspired them, and victory was the only result that could have possibly happened there. It was almost as if there was destiny at hand there. So today is a day of prayer, reflection and meditation, and people will be going to various places of worship around the country. And one of our journalists, Diabo Situ, is in Regina Mundi, which of course you'll know is a very important place of worship. Let's join her now and get a sense of what kind of prayer and meditation and thoughts will be taking place during the course of the day. Diabo?
Good morning. Peter, well, we are at Regina Mundi. Regina Mundi is located in Rockville Township here in South Africa. This church possesses a very, very rich history. If you do follow it or Google it or ask about it, you'll find out that in 1976, during the uprising, the demonstrants, they would run, when they were chased by police, they would run to this very, very church and would hide here. And at some point, the police would even follow them into the church. But luckily, during all those times, no one was killed. But you can just imagine the intensity of demonstrants running into a church for cover and even being followed there by policemen themselves. Well, today, as we know, that is a National Day of Prayer. This is where we will be having all different kinds of prayers from all different kinds of churches, who will be remembering the late former President Nelson Mandela, who, of course, died on Thursday night. And Regina Mundi is also one of the churches, of course, because of its significance as well, will be taking part in this. This morning already, we have seen the first Mesa that started at 7. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of people yet gathering. I understand that there are 2 masses, one at 7, the one that is currently underway, and another one at 9, that is going to be the one that will expect it to be filled to capacity. We have international media and even local media stationed all around the park. There's a park just in front of the church and in the surrounding of the church. So we're expecting it to be filled to capacity. We still don't have any confirmation of if we will be having any prominent people who will be speaking today at the church. But as you cross to me during the day, I will be giving you all those details about what will be happening. As I said, 9 o'clock is the time that the prayer for Madiba will be starting inside the church. We will be giving that to you live on 404 and all the SABC channels. But during my time here in the morning when I got here, I was trying to speak to the locals and also speak to the elders of the church as they were filing in. And I got hold of an elder of the church who I believe may know even better than me about the history of the church and the significance of the church, also putting that together with Mr. Nelson Mandela. Medumela. Please tell us about the significance of this church and why today is such a special day.
Yes, the significance of this church is that all the great pleasant and unpleasant occasions have been undertaken here. So today we are here to remember Mr. Tata Nelson Mandela. We have come to give him thanks, gratitude, and pride of him. So we are here to celebrate his life. We are not here to cry, to feel bad about his death. We are here to celebrate his life.
I'm also curious to find out about what you think the shape of South Africa is going to take now that the fallen hero is not here anymore. How do you see South Africa looking like now that Mandela is not here anymore?
It is now that South Africa is going to take shape, because now all what ubaba kade kufisa ukuthi kwenzakale la eSouth Africa, people will shape themselves, people will have to fulfill all the things that Tata wanted to be done in South Africa.
Do you personally have you met the great man before?
I have never met Mandela before.